Hi guys, welcome back. So sorry about the iPhone in this video, first and foremost. I know it doesn't look too cute, but hopefully this sounds okay. We'll see where this goes. But hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Reagan. Today I am going to be talking about something that I am super excited about, which is the top 25 books that I would like to read in 2025. This is literally crazy. When I was making this list, I almost made it 24 books to read in 2024. Like, no girl, it's 2025. That is actually nuts. I can't believe it's almost the end of December. Literally crazy. I just started this booktube channel a few months ago and time has really just flown by. So I'm super excited to go into the new year reading new releases, doing more videos, stuff like that. So I just wanted to talk about the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. I'm definitely going to be reading more than this, and maybe I won't necessarily stick to this list as the year goes on, but I guess we'll see. So these are just books that I have on my radar. I've got some new releases. I've got some books that I want to read before the movie adaptation comes out, and just some other stuff. So the first book that I would like to read in 2025 is Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Also, sorry if I'm looking down here, I've got my little notebook of my notes. This is the first book that I would like to read in 2025. I mean, it doesn't have to be the first book. Recently, I've just been thinking that I want to read this first. Originally, when I first found this book, I thought it was set in 2025, but when I was doing research for this, I just wanted to know what the synopsis was. It turns out it's set in 2024, so I guess I'm a little late to the game, but that's okay. So this is a book that was published in 1993, but it's set in 2024, but it is about this post-apocalyptic world that was caused by climate change, and it's just about corruption and government, and it's this girl's journey to kind of freedom in her world and with her family. I think I don't really totally grasp the concept of this book. The thing that I just am so intrigued by is the climate change ruining their world, and the fact that it's set in 2024 and we're really heavily experiencing issues with climate change. I just I want to see the parallels between this book that was written in 1993 and how life is actually panned out now that we're in 2025. I also just want to read this beginning of January because, things are definitely going to change towards the end of January as far as government and the environment and just that connection. So I would like to read that before then. I don't really have to, but it's just something that I've got in my mind, and now I'm going to do it. So I have a hold on it on my library. That's the first book that I want to read in 2025. And then kind of similarly, this is another book that I know I want to read at a specific time. This is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Guess when I'm going to read this? In June. Thank you very much. I've heard nothing but good reviews for this book. I think it's about two authors that were in love and then they broke up, and then just over years and years and years, they just keep writing about each other in their books and just other stuff, and that sounds so good to me. I'm just so intrigued. I feel all of the reviews that I've seen have all been 5 stars. That's actually nuts. I just want to read it in June. That sounds perfect to me. I don't really know why it doesn't have to be in June. I don't know, that's just how it's working in my brain currently. Okay, the next category that I have is new releases for 2025. The first book on this list I have been waiting for since childhood, which is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, of course. This is another prequel in the Hunger Games series, and this book follows Haymitch, who literally is my favorite character, I think, in the whole series. I just love him so much. Maybe, I love Peeta too, and Katniss, obviously, but Haymitch is just so funny and so, I don't know, he's a morally gray character, but ultimately does things for good, but it's he is just so messed up. And in the movies, I don't really think that they talk about his backstory too much, but in the books, they talk about how Haymitch wins his game, which was like the first ever quarter quell. And I can just picture that scene of him winning so vividly in my mind. So I'm super excited to read about it. And I think that they're also making a movie about it already. Like, I think the rights have already been sold. I don't really know. But that book comes out later this year. I didn't love Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I thought that the book was a lot better than the movie. The movie was still really good, but definitely like details were left out. So I'm interested to see how this book is going to be. I just think that the original, well, honestly, the first two books in the original trilogy are like stellar, amazing. And then Mockingjay and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes are just kind of like okay. So I'm interested to see how this one is going to go, since this is a storyline that I really want to read about. Like, I love Haymitch so much. That's one of them. And then another new release, of course, Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I actually have not yet read Funny Story, which was her release for this year. Originally, that was going to be one of my books for like one of my 25 books for 2025, but then this next book that I'm going to talk about kind of took over that. With her release of Happy Place, she started doing hardcovers for all of her like new release books, and all of the books that I have of hers are all paperback. And it kind of really bothers me when I have like the same author, but they're like in paperback and hardcover like that. I don't want that. So I am just waiting for Funny Story to come out in paperback before I read that. And I'll probably do the same thing with A Great Big Beautiful Life. I'll probably wait until that comes out in paperback too before I read that. Or maybe I'll read it in the library. I don't know. It depends on how I feel. But the premise of that book actually sounds really good. I don't really know anything about the Taylor Swift reference. Like, I don't really care. But it's like two authors competing to write a memoir or like a biography of this famous person. Like, that sounds really good. It kind of reminds me of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, with like the writer writing the biography of this really famous person. I'm interested to see how Emily Henry does that. And then, speaking of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, the next book that I would like to read that's a new release is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually had not heard anything about this until I watched Destiney Sidwell's her anticipated books, or just new releases in general, video, whatever. This book sounds so good. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's Hollywood series. Is that what it's called? I don't really know. But Daisy Jones and the Six, Seven Husbands. I did like Carrie Soto's Back. It's not my favorite. But this one, I don't think is one of those. I don't think it's one of the Hollywood things. It's set in the 80s, and it's about this woman who I think becomes an astronaut, or she's competing to become an astronaut. That sounds so good to me. I love science and STEM, and I don't know, space is really cool, and I don't really know too much about it, so any sort of movies or books about it, that sounds really good to me. So I would really like to read that when it comes out. I'm not really sure. Next, which is, actually no, it's not my biggest category, but it is a very exciting category. This is movie adaptations. I am a big fan, or I guess a big stickler for reading books before the movie or TV show comes out. There's something about that in my brain, I have to read the book first and be able to compare it. So I've got these books on here that are movie adaptations that I would really be excited about seeing, and also just books that I want to read in general. So the first one that I actually own already, is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I have never read Wuthering Heights. I know it's a classic. I've never read anything by the Bronte sisters. I also have Jane Eyre on my shelf, which I would like to read, but specifically I would like to read this one because the movie is being adapted by the same director who directed Saltburn. I'll put her name on the screen because I can't remember what it is. But I love Saltburn so much. That is one of my favorite movies. Did that come out this year or last year? I guess it was last year. Oh my god, it's been a year. I love that movie so much. The vibes are so incredible. And I know that Wuthering Heights is kind of I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, but it has a very certain vibe that I think will definitely fit with the same vibe that the director of Saltburn has. So I'm super, super excited to see that movie, and I obviously would like to read the book before. Also, I love that Kate Bush song, Wuthering Heights. Like, I need to read this. I just, like, what am I doing? I haven't read this yet. Anyways, excited about that. I'm not sure when that movie comes out. I think some of these may be like alleged movies, so kind of take these with like a grain of salt. I know that this one has been confirmed, so I would like to read American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. If you saw this in my fall TBR video, no you didn't. Like, I want to read it now. It's already winter, so I've kind of missed out on that mark, but I would really like to read it. Obviously, this has been a movie already, which I love that movie. I love Christian Bale. Oh my god. Oh god, he's so hot, especially in Howl's Moving Castle. I would like to read this before the new adaptation comes out, which is being directed by Luca Guadagnino. Wait, guys, I'm not... Every single video I have an issue saying people's names. Guadagnino. No, that's not right. Anyways, by Luca G. He is the director of Challengers. Also love that movie. He directed Call Me By Your Name. Also love that movie. He just came out with a new movie, Queer, with Daniel Craig and that other guy from Outer Banks, and also Omar Apollo. I would really love to see that movie. Haven't done that yet. I think he's directed some other stuff, I just haven't watched it, but I just know that his American Psycho adaptation is going to eat. It really is. It really is. And I've read, I think, maybe 100 pages of this a couple years ago, and I just like kind of put it down and then forgot about it. And I really liked it when I was reading it, so I am excited about getting back into it. Also, Austin Butler is going to be the new American Psycho. What is his name? Patrick Bateman, of course. I do think that Austin Butler is going to be good at Patrick Bateman. I hope he doesn't bring the Elvis accent, though, because I'm tired of it. Next, I have East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I love Shawn McComb. He is another booktuber. His videos are like the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, and he really loves this book, so it just like has been on my radar for a while. And I know like other people, of course, love his book. John Steinbeck, super popular. Grapes of Wrath, I've never read that, but you know, it's a classic. I did see somewhere that East of Eden was going to be adapted either into a movie or a TV show starring Florence Pugh, which sounds so good. I'm obsessed with Florence Pugh. She's just amazing. So I would really, really like to read that before the movie or TV show comes out, because I've just heard it's like such an amazing kind of like family saga, and I love that. Like, that just sounds so good to me, but really haven't heard too many details about that. Anyways, I want to read that in general, even if it's not being adapted, but still would like to see it. Okay, next I have Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I talked about this, I think, in my TBR video, my physical TBR video, but this is being adapted, and guess who is Shakespeare? Paul Mescal. I'm gonna have to see that. Like, I'm going to have to see that. I'm super excited. I really don't know too much about Shakespeare, like I said in that other video, but I've just heard that this is such a good book, and obviously I want to read it before the movie comes out. So I will be doing that. I'm not sure when the movie comes out. I would also really, really, really love to read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This, I've just heard so much about, like, so many good things. I don't really read a whole lot of science fiction, but I think, like, what I have read, it's been really good. And I've just heard nothing but good things about this book specifically. I've seen The Martian, the movie, but I've never read the book. But I think people say that this book is better from Andy Weir. Ryan Gosling is starring in this movie. I don't think it comes out until 2026, which is kind of a while away, but I do really want to read this just in general. and then also before the movie comes out. It just sounds so good to me. I think it's like an astronaut is stranded in this space center. He wakes up and he doesn't know where he is, what he's doing, and he kind of has to like get out of this scenario. I don't really know. It sounds super good to me, and I'm sure Ryan Gosling is gonna eat in the movie. I just watched Drive the other day. That movie was so good. He is so good in like a serious role, so I'm hoping that this is serious. Lastly, on the movie adaptations sort of part of this video, as far as I know, I don't know if other things are being adapted, but that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is going to be directed by Guillermo del Toro, who is one of my favorite directors ever. I love his movies so much. His brain is so crazy. The Shape of Water is one of my favorite movies of all time. The coloring, the cinematography, the story is just so beautiful. I also love Pan's Labyrinth. His version of Pinocchio with, I think it's claymation or stop motion. That is insane. I think that took like over 10 years to make. I'm not sure what other movies I like by him. Oh, Pacific Rim. Crazy that he directed that. There's other stuff that I know that I like by him, but I am so excited for this movie. The monster is going to be played by Jacob Elordi. Love him. And then also Mia Goth is in it, which I think that she is so good. Her voice is so interesting, but I love her in movies. But yeah, I'm super excited for this one. They just like posted a photo of the scene from it, and it looks really good. I'm specifically looking for Mary Shelley's 1818 version, because I think in other versions of Frankenstein that are just like regularly published, there's like parts edited out, which I think is like problematic in some way. I don't really know the full story, but I've heard that like the 1818 text is like accurate to how Mary Shelley wrote it originally, or that is like her original version. So I would like to find that if I am going to read it. Okay, so my next category is banned books. I would just like to read more banned books in general, but these ones are just ones that I have already. I think maybe some other ones that I've like talked about already are also banned. I don't know. The banned books list like it just keeps growing and growing and growing, which is so insane, and I'm sure it's only going to get worse. Anyways, the two that I have here that I want to read, I think I have more on my physical TBR, but these ones I'm like really, I picked the wrong book for this. Anyways, we're just going to roll with it because I don't feel like going over there, but the first one that I have is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I think that this is definitely going to be triggering for me, but especially because who is in office? Can you guys tell that I'm upset? Anyways, I would really like to read this. It's just like, it's such a classic. I'm really not excited to see like kind of the parallels between this and life today, but I would just really like to read it. I've never seen the show, which I've heard amazing things about. Obviously I've heard amazing things about this too. It's literally, is this a modern classic? I'm not really sure. I need to read this at some point, and that will be some point in this next year. Okay, so I actually meant to grab The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, but this is fine. I only own 2 Toni Morrison books, and I would like to read something by her. Maybe I'll get to both, but The Bluest Eye I've heard is like a good introduction to her because I've never read her before. The Song of Solomon also sounds great to me too. I think that I will start with The Bluest Eye just because what I said earlier, it's like kind of like an intro novel to her. That's another banned book. That sounds really good to me. And I obviously have 2 Toni Morrison books that I just really want to get into. These last few books are just like not in any specific category. They're just like other books that I want to read in general. So the first one that I have is The Shining by Stephen King. I may or may not be going to the Overlook Hotel at some point in 2025. I'm so excited if I actually get to go. But the Overlook Hotel, if you don't know, is the hotel it's a hotel in Colorado that actually inspired The Shining, Stephen King's book. And even though it's not the one that is in the movie, it's like known to be haunted and kind of paranormal, and that's where he got the ideas for The Shining. So I might be going there. And I would really love to read that book either before I'm there, or maybe I'll get a copy when I am there, because I think that they sell them at the hotel. Like, that would make sense to me. I love the movie. I've also never ever read a Stephen King book, and like, he's one of the most famous authors ever, so I would kind of just like to try. I don't know. I would like to read that at some point in my life. And if I'm going to the hotel, the Overlook Hotel, then I would love to read it at some point around then. Next, I have Dune by Frank Herbert. Just holding this, it's like a brick, a tome, if you would say. I have had this book for a while. I tried reading it, I think a few years ago, before the first Dune came out, and I got about 50 pages in, and it was just so confusing. But I would really like to try it again, because I watched both of the Dune parts this year. I think I rewatched Dune Part 1 before going to see Dune Part 2. Dune Part 1, the movie, the beginning part, I think is so slow. Like, I could not care less, really, and then it really picks up. And then I saw Dune Part 2. That movie was so good. It was giving me the same sort of feelings as like watching the Lord of the Rings series or watching the Harry Potter series. Like, it just feels like such a like symbolic and just really like amazing and influential kind of movie series that are like based on books, obviously. And I think like with my understanding of what happens in Dune Part 1 and Part 2 now, the movies, it might make it easier for me to read the book. We'll see. I'm not really sure. It just like, I feel like it's something that I have to read, you know, at some point in my life, and I would like to read it maybe this year. This year, yes, I mean, I'm saying that because this is one of my 25 books to read in 2025, so I will be reading this. Anyways, that's Dune. I love Timothée Chalamet. The FOMO that I had from seeing those pictures from the Timothée Chalamet lookalike contest, like, oh my god, I wish I was there. The next book that I want to read is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. I haven't read anything by James Baldwin, and I think that this is like, this year has been his centennial, is that what it's called? I think this year was supposed to be his like 100th birthday or something like that. And I've just seen so much about him this year specifically because of that, and I've just heard amazing things about Giovanni's Room, and I would really like to read it. I almost bought it when I was in Madrid, but I just didn't end up doing that for some reason. I'm kind of regretting that. Like, I wish that I had bought the book, but oh well, I'll get it eventually. But I would really like to try James Baldwin's books. And then next I have Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, and then also, I just want to read Sally Rooney books in general this year. I've just seen so much hype about Intermezzo this year, and I love the cover. I don't really, like, I've heard really good things about it, but the storyline doesn't sound, like, particularly interesting to me, but I do just really want to read it, because I just want to know what everyone's talking about, you know what I mean? Also, I've just been reflecting more and more on my experience reading Normal People, and I think, like, the longer I go without reading it, like the more time has passed since I read it, the more I like it. And I would just like to try more of her books. And I do have Beautiful World, Where Are You? I just haven't read that yet, so I would like to read that as well this year. That's not officially one of my books, but just Sally Rooney in general. Intermezzo would be great. Beautiful World, Where Are You would be great. Conversations with Friends also sounds really good. I don't know. I just want to try more Sally Rooney this year, since Normal People has been the only book that I've read by her so far. Next, I have Emma by Jane Austen. I just want to read Jane Austen in general. This is one book that I do have by her. I also have Persuasion, but it's like an annotated copy, so I don't know how I feel about that. But I've heard Emma is like a really kind of easy one to get into. One of my favorite movies of all time is Pride and Prejudice. And I just have never read anything by Jane Austen, and I feel like that is just illegal for me to be doing. Like, why is that my favorite movie ever and I've never read anything by Jane Austen? Like, that just seems wrong. So I think this year is the year that I will finally read something by her, and I think I'm going to start with Emma. Next, I have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I read Yellowface this year. Not sure if you can see it in the back. Well, I guess you can't. I read Yellowface by her this year and absolutely loved it. I love her writing style, and I've just heard such good things about The Poppy War again. I also saw a video of her posting that they came out with new covers, which are like more accurate to the book and something that R.F. Kuang likes more than the original covers. So after I saw that video, I was like, yep, I'm gonna have to read those with the new covers because they're stunning. The old cover just really is not that cute. I really want to read that and just that series as a whole. I think that I'll really like it, but we'll see. Another series that I think that I will really like is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I never know if I'm saying his name right. Is it Friedrich Bachman? Friedrich Bachman. I always kind of say it with like a little Swedish tinge, like Friedrich Bachman. Maybe that's more German, I'm not really sure. I just really would love to read the series because I've read 2 other books by him this year, and I've kind of heard that Beartown is like maybe his best work, and it just sounds really good to me. Like a little hockey town in the middle of Sweden that has like a scandal happening. Honestly, that sounds perfect to me. The main reason that I have not read it yet is because all of the books that I have seen of Beartown have that like now an HBO show sticker on it, and I just hate when books say like now a Netflix movie or whatever. So I've been trying to find a Beartown that does not have that, and I have been unsuccessful as of yet, but I also haven't been buying any books recently, so I haven't really been looking. If I do end up buying the series, I want to try and find it without the like nasty cover sticker on it that doesn't come off. That's one that I would love to read. Love to read. I also have In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I have this downloaded on my Kindle right now from the library, and I've just heard that it is such an amazing memoir. It's about this author's experience in a toxic or abusive queer relationship, and I think that she tells the story kind of with horror elements. I just heard that the storytelling is like so amazing and kind of impactful, but also really creative. So I would really like to try that one out. This next one, it's such a long title, so I didn't write it all down, but it's called Stolen Focus: Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again. This is by Johan Hari. This just sounds really good to me. I just found this the other day on Goodreads. I definitely have an issue with like attention, I guess. Maybe I have ADHD, I don't know. I just have a really hard time paying attention to things and like kind of focusing on stuff. So I would like to kind of read this book about it. It's nonfiction. I don't know, it just sounds good. I feel like the reviews that I've seen of it are positive as well. I think one thing that kind of makes me like hesitant about like nonfiction or like psychology books specifically is that I'll read like comments about them and there's like specific critiques or something that the author didn't do right or whatever. So it kind of makes me like weary to go into these kind of like newer psychology books and stuff like that, but I don't know. I feel like this one probably is fine. So I would like to read this at some point. I'll probably just get it through the library or something. And then the next one is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I'm sure as all of you who is watching this video has seen this New York Times Best Books of the Century list. This is the number 1 book on that list that was voted. So I'm just curious, you know. The first that I ever heard of this book was from The White Lotus, because one of the characters is like reading it by the pool, which is like so funny. Shawn McComb, who I talked about earlier, has a really good video on reading White Lotus books. But I would like to try this one, and just I want to know why it's the best book of the century. Like, that's kind of a big statement, you know? And then the next book that I have is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. I recently read the first Magnolia Parks book. I'm not, like, obsessed with it, but I see the potential for it to kind of grow and be better. And the way that the series kind of goes is there's one book about Magnolia Parks, which I just read, and then there's one book about Daisy Hates, who is another female character that you're introduced to in the first one. And I do think that Daisy Hates' story might be a little bit more interesting just because she's got a bit more of like a background going on, and just seeing the kind of like glimpses of her in the first book, I would like to read that one and just kind of test it out, see how that one goes, and maybe then I'll kind of decide whether or not I want to continue with the series, because it's like, I think maybe 5 or 6 books long. The first book was so repetitive, so I'm just like, how do you have 2 more books of these characters as far as like Magnolia Parks goes? How do you just like, I don't understand. So I would like to see how Daisy Hates goes. Very interesting kind of series that has so much hype, but then it's also like, is that worth it kind of thing? I don't know. The last book that I have on this list of 25 books to read in 2025 is Say Nothing by Patrick Rodden Keefe. I don't exactly know what this book is about, but I do think that it's kind of relating to like the aftermath of the conflicts that happened in Northern Ireland. Whoa. Like, that's just like a topic and part of history that's really intriguing to me, and I think that this is like a personal story about like a murder that happens, which first of all sounds good, but then also like the backdrop of like Northern Ireland post-conflict, like that sounds really interesting to me. I think that my history classes in high school didn't really do the greatest of jobs teaching about the religious conflicts that were happening in Northern Ireland and Ireland. So it's something that I'm like really curious about. I recently saw Hozier in concert, which is, first of all, amazing. Second of all, he had this really, really, really beautiful kind of speech or like monologue about politics and war and just like being divided as people. And he related to his upbringing in Ireland because he's Irish. And he was like feeling the effects of the conflict in Ireland like all throughout his life, and he's just seen how that like really divides people, and he was relating that to like kind of our issues with like between, you know, political parties in the US, and also just like with the war in Gaza and stuff like that. So it just kind of like reignited my kind of like fire as to like, ooh, conflicts in Ireland, like what is that history? Because I didn't really learn about it in school, and it's just something that's like I think about sometimes, and I'm like, ooh, I should learn about that. Yeah, it just like really kind of sparked my interest for this book. Also, again, this is like a Shawn McComb fan account right now, but he really likes this book, and he was talking about it the other day because I think it's maybe a TV show or a movie that's like already been put out, but I would really like to read this book. It's just something that's like really kind of intrigued me for a while, if you didn't get that already. Okay, those are all of the 25 books that I'd like to read in 2025. If you guys have stuff that you want to read in 2025 specifically, totally let me know. I'd be really interested to see what you guys are kind of looking forward to as far as reading or new releases or like adaptations, stuff like that. And yeah, I'm super excited for this next year. I love kind of like the new year energy of like renewal, restarting, stuff like that. I think it will definitely motivate me to read a lot of these books. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.